The 80s was a good decade. You had some iconic films come out. Back to the Future, The Empire Strikes Back, Ghostbusters, E.T., The Goonies, The Karate Kid. Also, some iconic musical artists were about. Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, George Michael, Cyndi Lauper, and of course, Rick Astley. But some iconic cars also came out in the 1980s. So here's a list of my personal favourites, in chronological order. Number 10. 1980 Audi Quattro. The idea for a sporty four-wheel drive car was proposed by Georg Bensinger in 1977. He found that the Volkswagen Iltis, a vehicle built for the military, was better than the other vehicles which were tested in the snow. The Quattro was revealed at the 1980 Geneva Motor Show on the 3rd of March. It had Audi's Quattro permanent four-wheel drive system, a turbocharged 5-cylinder engine which made 200 brake horsepower and a 5-speed manual. It had a top speed of 137 miles per hour, and the price for one in 1981 was £14,500, which is about £56,000 or $37,000 today. But if the performance of a regular Quattro wasn't good enough for you, you could get a Sport Quattro, a special homologation version built for the Group B World Rally Championship. The road-going version had 306 horsepower and went from 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. The Quattro is, of course, one of the most famous rally cars of all time. All of the Quattro's versions won a combined 23 events, and the first woman to win a WRC event was behind the wheel of a Quattro. It also broke a record at Pikes Peak. Walter Rohrl became the first driver to complete it in under 11 minutes, behind the wheel of an awesome Audi Sport Quattro S1. It was also driven by Gene Hunt in Ashes to Ashes, so that puts it up there.
Right, let's fire up the Quattro.
Number 9. Ford Capri 2.8 injection. The Capri was revealed at the March 1981 Geneva Motor Show. It had a Cologne 2.8 litre V6 with Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection to produce 160 brake horsepower. It had a top speed of 130 miles per hour and went from 0 to 60 in 7.9 seconds. It is a great looking car. With its pepper pot alloy wheels, it's undeniably 80s looking. It was even used by the Greater Manchester Police. In July 1982, it cost £7,995, which is £28,400 today, or $36,888. Number 8. The 1982 Porsche 944. Now here's a car I've always liked. Ever since I saw that Top Gear episode where they had to buy a Porsche for £1,500 and James gets that white 944. Yeah, 944s are great looking cars and they have pop-up headlights, and nobody will ever convince me that pop-up headlights aren't cool because we all know they are. I know they aren't safe if you hit someone, but I don't give a shit. The 944 was released for the 1982 model year. It had 163 horsepower from its 2.5 litre inline 4. It did use different engines over its lifespan with more power, but that's what it had in 82. And it had some different versions, the 944, the 944 Turbo, the 944S, the 944S2, the 944 Turbo Cabriolet. Even Callaway got their hands on a 944 and tuned it to produce 284 horsepower, opposed to the stock US spec 944's 143 horsepower. And the Callaway had a top speed of 165 miles per hour. Only like 20 of these were produced, so these are very, very rare. In the end, the 944 was replaced by the 968, which I'm also quite a big fan of. Number 7. The 1983 Volkswagen Golf Mark II. Now, as much as I like the Mark I, I prefer the look of the Mark II. Mark II is more modern, obviously, because it's a later model. Its styling is clearly quite similar to its predecessor. The headlights and the overall shape, for example, are very similar. It was launched at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1983. It debuted in 1984 in the UK and 1985 in the US. It was awarded as the 1985 What Car of the Year, and 6.3 million were produced by the time production ended in 1992. Number 6. The 1984 Ford RS200. Now, the 84 slot was quite hard for me to fill. A lot of good cars come out. Ferrari 288 GTO, Testarossa, Pontiac Fiero, Toyota 4Runner, Toyota MR2, but the Ford RS200 took the cookie. Now, after Ford introduced the new Escort in 1980, they set about producing a version for Group B. However, after a few problems, they abandoned the idea. They didn't want to give up on their Group B dreams, so they decided to build a purpose-built car. It was four-wheel drive, mid-engined, and fun fact, built on behalf of Ford by the Lion, who made the Robin. However, one was involved in an accident in Portugal, killing 3 spectators and injuring some more. There was another accident in Germany when an RS200 was crashed by Mark Surer in 1986, killing his co-driver Michael Wider. The RS200 became obsolete after Group B was banned. The RS200 had a 1.8-litre inline-4 engine making 444 horsepower, but Ford planned to introduce a more powerful 2.1-litre Evolution version. Power for these versions varied between 550 horsepower and 815. The most powerful of these variants was said to be able to accelerate from 0 to 60 in just over 2 seconds. Although Group B was banned, the RS200 ran in rallycross, and Martin Shichanche, side note, I'm awful at pronouncing things, sorry if I get any of them wrong, but Martin Shichanche won the 91 European rallycross title with a 650 horsepower RS200 E2. I've actually had the privilege to sit inside of an RS200, and it was quite cramped. I really didn't feel safe in one. I felt if I was going quick there and I was in an accident, that it would be game over. Number 5, 1985 Lancia Delta S4. Yes, another Group B car. I think at this point it's a known fact that Group B produced some of the most awesome cars. As usual, homologation rules say they have to build 200 road-going versions. These were known as the Lancia Delta S4 Stradale. It was mid-engined, four-wheel drive, and had a turbocharged and supercharged 1.8-litre inline-4 engine. Lancia said it could reach 140 miles per hour and go from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. The interior was nice too, with a trip computer, power steering, sound deadening, and air conditioning. In the races, it won 5 events, although the results of the 1986 Rally of San Remo were cancelled and the points weren't included in the championship. However, it was involved in a fatal accident. In the 1986 Tour de Corse, Finnish driver Toivonen missed a tight hairpin and the car fell down a ravine, bursting into flames and killing him and his co-driver Sergio Cresto. This led to the abolishment of Group B. Number 4. The 1986 BMW E30 M3. Again, another really hard slot to fill. We had the 959, the Sierra RS Cosworth, the Shelby GLHS, and the Cadillac Alante, the Aston Martin V8 Zagato, the TVR S Series, and the Lamborghini LM002. But this German icon got the spot. The E30 M3, the first M3, was intended to be a homologation version of the 3 Series to satisfy the Group A touring rules. It was presented at the 1985 Frankfurt Motor Show. It had upgrades to improve aerodynamics, a 5-speed gut-rag transmission, and the BMW S14 inline-4, which was basically the M1 engine minus 2 cylinders. It had a 192 or 197, depending on the catalytic converter, horsepower engine and a top speed of 146 miles per hour. It also had a couple of different additions, such as the Evolution, introduced in 88, with 217 horsepower, a lighter boot lid, a rear spoiler, and a deeper splitter. There was also the Sport Evolution, with 235 horsepower and a top speed of 154 miles per hour. A total of 17,970 E30 M3s were produced. Number 3. 1987 Ferarri F40. Now here's another icon. Ferrari wanted to join in the fun that all the other manufacturers were, yep, you guessed it, Group B. So they set about creating a car, however Group B was banned in 86. So Ferrari had its awesome race car, the 288 GTO Evolution, but had no competition to enter it in. So Enzo, who was 88 at the time, wanted to leave his legacy in one final sports car. So they decided to make it roadworthy. The body was designed by Pininfarina and made from Kevlar, carbon fibre and aluminium. The windows were plastic, it had no carpets, no door handles, no radio. It had a 2.9-litre turbocharged V8 making 471 horsepower. Speed-wise, the first independent tests set a top speed of 199 miles per hour. The F40 was tested against a Roof CTR, which reached 213 miles per hour, and a Porsche 959S, which reached 211 miles per hour. It came last, not being able to go any further than 199. Car and Track measured a top speed of 196 miles per hour, and Car and Driver measured 197 miles per hour. It was never the world's fastest production car, as said by Ferrari. The F4 stayed in production until 1992, and about 1,315 were produced. Number 2. The 1988 Volkswagen Corrado. Volkswagen launched the Corrado in late 88. They were front-wheel drive and debuted with 2 engines. You had the 1.8 litre 16-valve inline-4 with 134 horsepower, or the supercharged 1.8 litre 8-valve inline-4 known as the G60, producing 158 horsepower. They introduced 2 new engines in 92, a naturally aspirated 2-litre inline-4 and a VR6 engine. There were 2 versions of the VR6, a 2.8 litre for the US and Canada, producing 179 brake horsepower, and Europe got a 2.9 litre, producing 187 brake horsepower. The VR6 Corrado was called the SLC in America. The Corrado was built on the A2 platform, shared with the Mark II Golf and Jetta. All models except the VR6 used subframes, steering and brake components from that range. Corrado stayed in production until 1995, with 97,521 produced. Number 1. 1989 Mazda MX-5. I know, the hairdresser's car, I'm sorry. The MX-5 NA is the first generation of MX-5, and my personal favourite. It was inspired by British roadsters like the Triumph Spitfire and MGB. It is the best-selling sports car with over 1 million produced. It was revealed at the Chicago Auto Show in February 1989. It is known as the Unus Roadster in Japan and the MX-5 Miata in America. The original MX-5 had a 1.8 litre dual overhead cam inline-4 producing 115 brake horsepower. There were a lot of special editions. Here they are. The 1991 Special Edition, the 1992 Sunburst Edition, the 1992 Black Miata, the 1993 Limited Edition, the 1993 Energia Electric Vehicle, the 94 M Edition, the 94 to 1997 R Package, the 1995 M Edition, the 1995 M Speedster Concept, the 1996 M Edition, the 1996 M Coupe Concept, the 1997 M Edition, and the 1997 Special Touring Option. There were also a load of M2 editions, but I could not be asked to read them all out. The first gen MX-5 stayed in production until 1997, and was replaced by the second generation. So there we are, my favourite cars from each year of the 1980s. This video took way too long to make, so a like would be appreciated if you did enjoy, and maybe subscribe if you want, not forcing you to do so. Anyway, goodbye.